I won't force you to join me, but I'm not allowing those savages to cross into Bela." He turned on his heel and marched to the stables, barking orders as he did. "Ready the horses!" All those who wished to fight gathered their weapons. Steel flashed in the early morning sun, but it was only a tool, a ruse. Their greatest weapons lay inside them. Each magic wielder's power was different. Some could call on the heat of the sun, others forced the winds to obey their commands. And Philip? His greatest weapon was his protective shields against the enemy. A king should have been able to do more in battle. He'd always thought it ironic that his gift wasn't more. One day, it would be. One day, he'd know what it felt like to be invincible, to harness the power of his ancestors, the magic that belonged to the Basiles, transferring to each new generation as they stepped up to rule. And when that time came, Gale would regret the day they made an enemy of Bela. Philip knelt down in the middle of the battle, digging his fingers into his thighs as he tried to hold the parts of his invisible shield that hadn't already fallen. An arrow sailed for Alfred's back. Philip clenched his teeth, pulling in his little remaining energy to expand his shield, throwing it out toward Alfred. The arrow hit the invisible force and snapped in two, sending a tremor through Philip. The prince slumped forward. "General!" Chandler ducked away from the arc of a sword before slicing his attacker across the back. Not with his own blade, but with his magic. His power was an extension of his sword. He sprinted toward Philip and grabbed his arm to haul him to his feet. "I told you not to use your shield to protect all of us. You can't hold it that wide." "You don't give me orders." He sucked in a breath, and it rattled painfully in his chest. Chandler scanned the battlefield where many of their comrades had fallen. Horses darted from the fight. The Gallian savages continued to come. "You need to order a retreat." Alfred joined them, wiping his dripping blade on the grass. Philip shook his head. A retreat meant defeat. It meant allowing their enemies to have a piece of Bela, to encroach upon their land. He lifted his eyes to the hill where the Gallian king sat atop his horse, never joining the fight. Such was the way of the Durans. Alfred gripped Philip's shoulder. "We've already lost. Now is the time to save what little we can." He was right. There was no denying it. Enough people had died this day. Philip nodded, and Alfred lifted his chin. "Retreat!" His voice carried on the strength of his magic. He could make himself heard at great distances. Those on the battlefield and in the fortress would hear his call. "Retreat! We have to get to the woods." Philip looked toward the Gallian king once more, and the man's dark eyes turned in his direction as if he could see the Balian prince amidst the chaos. The woods were their only chance. The Gallians were a suspicious sort, fearing the dark forests that stretched across Bela. Philip tried to pull his magic forth, to shield them as they ran, but it was no use. He had no strength left for it. His feet thundered across the open land. His head turned each way to make sure the rest of his army followed. The remaining Balians fled for their lives, abandoning a fortress they'd held for centuries. But some things were more important than buildings and land. A man collided with Philip, knocking him to the ground. The prince tried to roll him off, but the Gallian was too strong. He held a knife in one hand and slashed it across Philip's stomach. Pain radiated from the point of attack, and then someone hauled the man off him. Chandler stabbed his sword through the savage and pulled it out in one movement. As the dead man collapsed to the ground, Alfred pulled Philip back to his feet. Philip pressed a hand to his wound, trying to stem the bleeding. Crimson life seeped between his fingers. Chandler and Alfred both yelled his name, but he didn't hear them as he fell to his knees. Agony seared through him. The end. It comes before you're ready. It never takes into account how much you have left to accomplish. Death cares little if you're the prince.